Greetings, Dr. Joseph Martin here, Donna Galenqua. And our topic for now is shame, suffering, and growing self-worth. Now, I could give you a whole analysis of what shame is from a psychological perspective, and I'm choosing to give you more of my own life story because my own life story is completely based on shame. And notwithstanding the fact that our society is completely shame-based in all our institutions, from education to justice to politics to law and everything else, our families are shame-based as well. And certainly my family was a shame-based family. It came from both sides of my father's side and my mother's side, going back centuries, in fact. I was abused, and being an analytical kind of guy, because that's what shame-based people end up being when they're very young. They want to be controlling and be in dominating things and organizing things and categorizing things. So from an analytical perspective, I realize now that there are 14 different kinds of abuse, and I was the victim, the unwilling victim, of just about all of them. That includes, of course, for most of us, spiritual, mental, verbal, emotional, physical, sexual, relational, and on and on. And though it's been a very challenging life story for myself to overcome all the shame and transform and transmute all of the shame into self-worth, and that is the key concept for obviously not only this video, but every one of our lives here on the planet. That one thing alone, shame is the one key core experience that we're all born into and we live through that will determine the level of our character as we choose to deal with this issue that's like a wet blanket. It causes great loneliness and depression, causes great addictions, and all kinds of other issues. I'd like to share a few stories with you that you might find humorous. In fact, of course, at the time they never sound humorous, and I'm sure some of you are locked into some shame-based thinking and shame-based shutdown emotions and feelings, and perhaps feeling less than and not good enough, and maybe even self-talk that's all shame-based that comes from you. Well, the good news is shame is something that happens to you. It's not really who you are, even though it feels like you can be calling yourself a bad person or not good enough. Now, I remember when I was really young, I used to hide in closets, and not just the kind of fearing to come out as a young gay man, but hiding in closets and cupboards in my house just so I wouldn't get beaten by my parents, who were alcoholics, and my older brother as well. I used the excuse of having a hole in my heart that I was born with for not involving myself in team sports. But the truth really is, I was afraid of team sports because people would bully me and make fun of me. And so I chose to do all solo sports. It's really hard to play ping pong with yourself all the time, though, when you really need a partner. And I must say, it would have been better if I'd had a team to play baseball with rather than just hitting the ball around all by myself all the time. And the same goes for soccer. You see, because human beings are meant to be connected, the one thing we really all need is to feel loved and feel that we're connected. What shame does is it stops you from being connected and feeling connected and even thinking that you're connected to someone else. And it makes you feel unlovable and unwanted and unneeded. And when you're experiencing that, as I did from all of my childhood and all of my teenage years, until I started to go to therapy, and let me tell you, I ran for therapy. I didn't saunter and whistle along the way. No, I knew that unless I did something, I probably wouldn't make it till my 19th birthday. And I'm a little older than that, with the gratitude and the blessing of the Great Spirit. The point being is that we all need help and support, and we all need to understand ourselves. We all need to thaw out all the frozen emotions and feelings, particularly the sadness and the loneliness and the depression that comes with the shame. And remember, shame is not something that you deserve. If it's done to you, it's because people like to take power away. is because they don't feel secure in their own life, whether it's your parents, your teachers, your peers, your older brothers or sisters, whomever it may be. The fact is that the taking away of power is what abuse is all about and why people shame other people. It's, uh, it's an unfortunate, insecure projection of trying to feel superior or feel better by putting someone else down. Of course, we're all very sensitive individuals, aren't we? And the more shame that comes upon you, the more that you might withdraw into your shell. Well, the good news was is that I went along, I took each fear and insecurity because remember, shame is based on fear and insecurity. When you face the fear and you face the feelings that you're trying to hide and open up to them and just be vulnerable with them and try to process what you experience and try to jump outside yourself. I'd like to share just two stories with you. I ended up being an anthropologist and at the University of Toronto. I remember teaching 700 first-year students first-year anthropology, which includes everything from social cultural anthropology, archaeology, linguistics, and on and on. And I was so ashamed of myself and feeling incapable of putting two sentences together that I used to write every single word out on paper or through a typewriter. We didn't have computers back then. And so I would feel safe enough and comfortable enough just reading it. And I'd have all these slides that I'd show of great kind of cultures around the world that we could all kind of focus on instead of focusing on my inability to present something to all these young students. And mind you, I was only 28 years of age myself. I believe it was the second class that I gave in this big rotunda at the University of Toronto, where we all graduate from. And as I stepped up onto the platform, the dais, all the slides went flying as I threw the carousel out, and all the papers, about 27 pages of notes that I'd wanted to read so I'd feel safe, went flying in every direction. Of course, they were unnumbered. In that most scary moment when everyone could have shown me like a lot of ridicule and laughed their heads off, which some of them did. I heard some in the back row there. I realized that the whole thing was going to be a waste unless I could own up to how I was feeling and just kind of move forward with the whole experience. So I threw out the pages and put them on the floor, and all the slides were all over the floor anyways. And I just put them down, and I thought, I'm just going to connect with people face to face, eye to eye, heart to heart. And so what I did is I took the microphone and I stepped down off the big platform and I walked around and I pretended I was some kind of an interviewer on television. And I was sharing a few of my own stories of my own ineptness and what I needed to learn and grow. And of course, that's why we teach. We teach what we need to learn, don't we? And I had a lot of fun, and the students were attentive. They weren't falling asleep or snoring or tittering or making fun or faces at me or anyone else. They actually were being really there and present and very connected to themselves, to one another, and certainly to me. And being human is all about connecting and having a relationship. We had a lot of fun, and ever since then, whenever I do presentations of any sort or even here with you now, I just speak from my heart instead of from my head, and that's made all the difference in my life. Now, as I said, I've had many illnesses in my life, and one of them was being born with a big hole in my heart. And I've always wondered about the symbolism about what that means. I know for a fact that I always had a hole in my heart, emotionally and feeling-wise. I always felt unlovable and unloved as a baby, as a young child, as a preteen, as a teen, and even into my 20s. I didn't really receive much love at all from my family, nor from my peers who had no time for me. And I believe that that's a powerful, potent collective symbol for all of us. We all have holes in our hearts. We hide inside the holes in our hearts, but it's pretty empty. And there's no feeling, and there's no love, and there's no connection. It's very lonely, it's very depressing, and it's very sad, actually. And we all have these holes because there's something missing, something been cut out. And what's been cut out of our lives and our society and cultures around the world is love and kindness and respect and gentleness and honor and honesty and integrity and all the things that make us human in our best way and all the things that make life worthwhile. And this hole in the heart symbol, I believe, is really still what we need to focus on in our lives right now, both as individuals and in couples and relationships and families, and certainly among all of us here on the planet. This hole in the heart means that you're always lonely and you're always feeling alone, and it's just an ongoing pain, a great suffering, a great kind of sense of loss. And it's the feeling of being unloved and unlovable that I'm really focusing on here now. Now, another story that I'll get back to this in a moment, but another story when I was teaching psychology at the University of Guelph, when I was training as a marriage and family therapist and teaching courses while the lead professor went on sabbatical. He trusted me enough to teach all his courses. I had just lost my partner, my gay partner, to cancer at that time, and I was only 34 at the time. And I was teaching psychology there at that time. And I got Bell's palsy. Some of you might be familiar with it. It's when all the nerves on one side of your face go completely dead and you can't close your eye and you can't speak. And it's almost incomprehensible to hear what somebody's saying. So I would talk like this out of the side of my mouth and my eye wouldn't close and so on. And it was a very challenging thing because I was teaching a course in communications. And the hilarity of all that was that I had to work through my shame of standing up in front of 250 students in a classroom speaking about communication when I couldn't really say a word that they could understand. I had to speak very slowly. And in fact, I've had Bell's palsy on both sides of my face, so only through electroacupuncture have I healed that. How did I communicate and connect with all those students? Well, it wasn't through verbal communication necessarily, which is only 10% of what we know communication is. The other 90% of true, authentic, real communication is from the heart. It's nonverbal. And you can feel it, and you can intuit it, and you just know it. You know it in your gut, you know it in your heart, and you know it in every cell of your body. And you know when somebody cares about you, and you know when you feel loved and accepted by somebody else. And this is why it's so important for each one of you listening to get over the shame that you might have been feeling at birth or through your childhood or teen years or 20s. Wherever it came from, you may need to go to a therapist and deal with that. That's quite important. But realize that shame is the great power that is driving you forward when you open up and you realize that you can let go of the secrets and you can tell the truth, and the truth will set you free. And you can break the silence and you can speak from your heart and speak with your words. And you can stop judging yourself and realize that every day is non-judgment day. And instead of judgment, just be with what is, because that's your life story and it's true and real and authentic. And move from judgment to joy and enjoyment of your life in the moment. Make some laughter about your story. Take it with a grain of salt, although it's a very sincere kind of part of your nature, that you will be able to move through the suffering around the shame that you've endured from whatever person or whatever place, whatever circumstances. This is the real joy of self-worth. Self-worth only comes, and self-confidence and self-esteem only come when you are able to consciously, with a sense of purpose and meaning, move through all the energy locked and blocked and frozen inside your body, your emotions, around your heart, in your mind, in your unconscious. Move through all that, thaw it out, deal with it. Realize that the beauty of the power of the meaning of shame. There is a reason why our whole world is shame-based. That's because when we deal with it consciously and deal with it in a way that's purposeful and meaningful and helps you actually uh, transform the energy into self-worth. Day by day, throughout my 64 years, little by little, as I work through all the shame that's been in and around me, and as we still deal with it in a shame-based society around career, class, caste, religion, age, gender, sexual orientation, many of us feel shame-based around a lot of these issues which are external as well. As you work through this on your own terms, and I do highly suggest that you find a therapeutic situation with somebody who knows what they're doing. As many of you know, as a psychologist, I use many modalities, but particularly Jungian dream analysis as a Jungian analyst. And in Jungian terms, we call shame the swamplands of the soul. And definitely that's what it is. We've been mired in the swamplands of the soul, but the frogs still sing in the swamplands of the soul. And the frogs, as an animal medicine, is all about purification. All the shame that's in you, I guarantee that you will be able to purify it and turn it into courage, authenticity, true power through vulnerability, being able to speak the truth, and the fact that none of us need to be perfect. We just need to be human. We need to be able to love and be loved. We need to be able to be kind and choose to be gentle and empathetic with others. And all this can be done by the process that you engage on day by day. It's the courage that comes with it. Remember, courage is a French and a Latin word that means from the heart. When you speak from the heart and speak up, speak your truth, break the silence, stop judging yourself, turn all the self-talk to positive self-talk, that you are good enough and you are a unique, an original human being, and you are worthy just because you exist. And your journey and your adventure can be a great one with great courage as you move forward. Now, in my case, it turned out to be shame turned out to be one of the greatest things that ever happened to me, and I bless shame for it, in the sense that I never would have probably never been a psychologist, a Jungian analyst, never have been a social cultural anthropologist or philosopher interested in all these things about what make us tick. I remember back through the years, it was 1979 when I first taught a course on healing the shame that binds you at the continuing education studies at the University of Toronto for adults in the social work department there. And this was the same year that John Bradshaw came out with his great book, which I highly recommend you read, Healing the Shame That Binds You. And John has come out with other books since then. Even though it's been all these decades now, I still know that shame can be a powerful force if I let it come into my consciousness, into my feelings and my body. And of course, instantaneously, there are often times when we do feel shame, even though we've done so much inner work like I have. But you know what the path and the process can be. You know how to deal with it. It is a science, and it is something by being kind and considerate and loving and connecting to your own heart and emotions and feelings and taking your soul, moving your soul out of the swamplands into the higher heights where you can have some sense of solitude and solace and actually a sacred space where you can exist in your own right. There are many more things we can say about shame. I wish you well with this. Remember, it can all be turned into joy and love and connection. Some of you may be feeling just so much lack of connection and wanting to share your story with others. I highly recommend that you just choose the courage and take the courage now, seize the moment, and be courageous enough to at least share your story now as you're finishing watching this video with somebody who you know you would like to share this story with, whom you trust. someone who probably cares for you more than you realize. You choose who that might be, and I ask you to share maybe one or two or three secrets of something that's been shaming you for ever so long in your life. And when you do, you will find that things start to move, to shift, to change. You feel an energy inside. You feel a lightening, a lifting in your mind. You feel hope again. You feel the ability to connect again. You feel the ability to trust and to be the original, unique human being you are. And of course, the goal in all of this is just to be the love you are and to feel the hope that is part of our human birthright. Everyone has the hope and the ability to be a free, unique individual. So, all my love to you, Dr. Joseph Martin, and take good care of yourselves. May all this that you've experienced in your life turn into courage and strength and love and decision and action. And may you find increasingly, day by day, without even knowing it, that your self-worth becomes more than ever. All love and blessings. Take good care of yourselves.